So today's debate was going perfectly well on the clash between principles of commodification of traits and how it affects society, until these guys brought a decor by saying our model is one which excludes diversity. That is like a very nonsensical argument, and I'm going to show you this to the list. Then after I tell you why, then I engage these guys and then tell you why I was extension on how, you know, incentivization of things and how the capitalistic world where we live in, where individualism and how incentives matter a lot, makes it fundamentally so that if we even want traits to continue in the first place, it is very, very important that we incentivize them by commodifying them. But why are these guys very, very wrong? Because first they say diversity is threatened. I don't know where they get the argument from. When we have a market system, nobody controls monopoly of traits in markets when you sell them. It is very nonsensical to think that in a world where people come to market their traits, only good traits would be the things that would be sold in those type of markets. We think that is very wrong in and of itself. But then if these guys say we challenge standardization in the first place, or if this argument is an impact of why government should not decide why standardization is bad, we think today's debate is not about standardization of morals or standardization of ideals. But even if this debate is about it, why should states standardize on morals which they think is very good? Understand that this is different from saying majority of people buy into a particular thing and they want to buy them, because that is what this whole today's debate runs for. Why is the importance of standardization bad? Let's take this detour. First, we say standardization of morals and ideals make the society work in and of itself. In as much as we like to accommodate deviance, we must have a moral standard in a society. We must not say anybody can do what they like and then you can be pedophiles because it is your trait that you inherently like children and then you violate their consent and all of that. Standardization makes society works. But what else does this mean on the second level? We say standardization makes it so that we profess the preference of the majority. But one thing these guys get wrong is that the preference of the majority is not static. So this guy knives himself when he gives you the theory of evolution that in a time in our world we were only interested in fighting, we were only interested in surviving, but in this world we are interested in using intellectual things using intellectual solutions to problems. That means it consists that the society evolves, that the standards of yesterday might not necessarily be the standards of today. To the extent that standardized or morals or traits or ideals that we prioritize as society is not static, we say this is a utility on our own side. Why? Because the dynamism makes it so that traits compete favorably in markets and find the favor of the people we think are the consumers. And if this is good, nothing is wrong with that intrinsically. First of all, they say people would desire desirability does not work in our system. We say desirability works more in a capitalist system where you have to sell things. Why? Because you have to employ means at your best disposal to make sure that people buy into traits, people buy into your ideas. That means it means that instead of a world where only government or anybody controls what is morally right or what is not wrong, this makes it so that people now bring their arguments to the table on why you should buy into a particular trait or buy into another particular trait. Then I'll engage these guys because they make a couple of sense. Three things we get of them, but then this ties in with points of exploitation. They say only rich people will get these things, and that is exploitative in and of itself. We disagree. We think rich people can never control the monopoly of needs in any society. That is how the market works. So you cannot control the monopoly of things that are very, very germane to our existence. But even if it is true, if rich people actually buy this thing to the exclusion of poor people, recognize that what they will do is to get traits from the poor people. So we say this is good and itself, and that is what Awa was saying in terms of incentivization. Awa says the traits you get are the traits of these poor people. The traits in poor people are not oppressive in and of itself. You cannot get someone who is poor and has not engaged superiority in and of itself and say when you harvest the traits of that person, you are going to have a superiority contest. We think this even breaks down the superiority contest in terms of hierarchy between race that we have in this system. Because what you get from them is that rich people that buy these things continue now see things from a different angle, which they will not see. As Awa tells you, your socialization of places where you live in determine what kind of things you get. So the nonsensical argument is that if you can acquire traits in the first place, why sell them? Awa says if you are in a particular society, there are some traits you can never get. But to the extent that commodification makes it so that we bring in things from different perspectives, we think this is good in and of itself. Before I go on, I take
it's only that this thing happens in a capitalistic society. This is very, very stupid.
Okay.
In a moral action like this, engage how monetary incentive does not was a vulnerable party into committing an action that if they had calmed down, they wouldn't have committed.
Alright, awesome. So the essence of this is that these guys actually also consider it's only a capitalistic state where you sell things and then the government allows that. In socialist or conservative states, nobody allows you to sell moral standards. The state standardizes for themselves. There's no dissent. That cannot work. I already showed you this. But to the extent that what these guys say is that money makes it that conscience is vitiated. Our tells you there is no decision you take when it involves trade that money is not an incentivization. So the extent of the argument is that we cannot sell things because money is involved. We cannot sell things objectively. That means we cannot make any trade decision objectively. It's not an argument to say because money is involved, then you cannot make decisions by yourself. Then that means because money is involved, people cannot make decisions. And if this is true in all aspects, which you think is not, because we think even in that world, people still make decisions on what is best for them, then consent to the extent that we cannot have an imperfect choice-making mechanism, that falls down on this guy's side. Then this guy say it's going to lead to, it is going to trivialize the value nature of such process. We think, and the analysis they gave us is time for its acquisition. We think people acquire things over time. Go.
Okay, so you need to engage our argument on how these people have the ability to choose what is desirable, because they want to, they are businessmen. They want to also sell and buy these things. How can we sabotage it?
Alright, so first off, these guys considering themselves that because the traits we need are domiciled in poor areas, they only buy and don't sell. But let's engage the best case scenario that these guys have the potential power to control media narratives of what traits is good and unsafe. We think this can only work to the extent that there is no overwhelming societal revolt that this trait is bad, this trait is wrong. We think if you go to the extreme and say you want to perpetuate your narrative to the extent that it becomes oppressive to the poor people, society gives the opportunity for poor people to revolt and say this is bullshit, we call it out. Society has a way of checking markets and monopolistic tendencies that tend to oppress people. Why is our extension the one that wins today's debate essentially? First, our says commodification of the stative is important if you want these things to stay. To the extent that in a capitalistic world, a capitalistic world is one which revolves on what you have to you give up to get what you want in the first place. If you want this trade to continue, we actually give them this. But more importantly, our says existence in the status quo, and these guys are not engaged why we should not extend that principle. We celebrate heroes based on their traits. We celebrate other people who are very proud to prove.